The global attempts to reduce carbon emissions by 45% in 2030 and net zero in 2050 is ambitious, but it is dangerously devoid of any understanding on the actual science in implementing such ambitious goals. Much has been said about climate science. This post isn't to argue for or against climate science, but to argue about the technicality and scientific feasibility or infeasibility to achieve such targets. First, let's talk about food security. According to this chart from World In Data, 50% of the people on this planet that we call Earth are supported by synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. What is synthetic nitrogen fertilizer? It is basically made of predominantly natural gas, which is a type of hydrocarbon. What would happen to food security when synthetic nitrogen fertilizer has to be cut from our economy in the name of achieving ambitious carbon reduction target? Secondly, let's talk about renewable energy. As you can see in this post in LinkedIn, only about 1 million US workers provide all the energy that is needed by 330 million Americans. The average oil and gas worker is 17 times more productive than low energy renewable worker like solar and wind. If you're an employer, would you hire 17 people to do the job of one person? When renewable energy is this labor intensive, it is hard to figure out how renewable energy can actually be cheaper than fossil fuel, even if renewable energy doesn't require any input cost in the form of material input. The increase in labor cost is faster than the elimination of material input cost. So renewable energy is just going to be more expensive. Let's not forget that in tropical countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, rain and sun are abundant. What that means is that weeds and unnecessary, undesirable plants grow really fast. One basically needs to employ lots of labor so that the areas surrounding solar panels are free from any weeds or plants that would potentially block solar panels from receiving direct sunlight. Well, alternatively is to just put a lot of herbicides around areas of solar panel. That sort of defeats the purpose of having solar panel. Of course, when I'm talking about solar here, I'm talking about solar that is applied on open land rather than rooftops. Thirdly, let's talk about copper. If we are to meet our zero emissions target, we are actually going to be short of 50 million tons of copper by 2030. So clearly the world needs more copper mines, but would we be able to build and commission new copper mines in time? In North America alone, 20 years has lapsed between initial discovery and the first production of copper. We have got less than 7 years to achieve these 50 million tons of copper supply and demand gap. And let me reiterate here again, to actually begin the commissioning of copper mine and to actually start running it, we need a minimum of a decade to a decade and a half between planning and commissioning a copper mine. So we are basically 15 years behind in supply in order to meet the demand. As it is said here in this post, the annual capital investment in energy transition metals averaged to $45 billion over the last 2 decades, compared with the $70 billion that we need every single year through to 2030 to basically expand supply of copper. That is huge. The combination of high interest rates and governments issuing record number of debts or bonds mean that liquidity will be sucked away from private sector into fiscal expenses. So investment into copper mines is less likely to be privately led investment anyway moving forward, especially for the G7. Then here comes the next question. If this copper revival is going to be government-led, will there be enough money that is coming from tax revenues or money printing from governments anyway to facilitate such energy transition? Will there be enough tax revenues for such an ambitious skill anyway? What will happen to inflation if there are not enough tax revenues and it's just a lot more money printing to facilitate such endeavor? That's it for today. If you guys like this video, please click like and do subscribe to my channel. And feel free to share it with your network if you find this very informative. Hopefully, we will get the message out there so that policymakers can make more informed decisions about such crazy, ambitious implementation of net zero without really understanding the feasibility and consequences of the science and technicality of such implementation. So, thank you everyone. Bye bye.